Hello and welcome to the Poultry Network podcast. I'm Tom Woolman.
My name's Tom Willings.
And we've got a bit of a special episode today, haven't we, Tom?
It's a long time in the production values. There's a bit of pressure around this one, Tom.
There is, and the pressure was make sure that we get it out before Christmas, 2026.
Wind the clock back then, and just explain for anybody listening what on earth we're talking about.
So I don't know if people that are obviously very loyal listeners to the podcast will recall that in
with
December,
exceptionally long memories.
Yeah, or very detailed notes. They will recall that in Christmas 2025 there was an auction, a charity auction at the Southwest Chicken Association Christmas dinner, and one of the prizes was a guest editor slot on the Poultry Network podcast. Now, the very, very generous guy that put his hand in his pocket for that auction prize was Robert Lanning, who many people will know, broiler farmer based in the Southwest. And he got the opportunity to set up a podcast effectively where he could choose the topic that we wanted to talk about. So here we are in the middle of the year. It's taken a while, but what Robert was really interested in, he was interested in where is the industry heading in the future, and what are the young people today who are working in the sector think about what's going to be coming down the road.
And hey presto, here are four young people talking about the future. No, just two.
I think you're still young based on some statistical references that you could do
through the metric
the
of
average age of
eyesight
people in
and hair.
agriculture. Yeah,
through the metric of eyesight and hair, I'm not doing so well. But otherwise, my Garmin watch tells me that my biological age is lower than my chronological age, so I'll take that.
Well, you're probably right. You could probably run rings around all three of us. So, there are four of us going to be on the podcast today. I'm really pleased that we're joined by two guests, two young strapping guests, one from the broiler sector and one from the egg sector. So from the broiler sector, we've got Ed Lanning, and from the egg sector, we've got Callum James. Hi, guys.
Welcome both.
Hi,
Afternoon.
Tom. Thank you for the introduction.
So, Callum, I actually saw you last night, didn't I?
Yes, yeah, no. Last night we were at the Southwest Chicken Association cricket match versus the West Country Layers Association, which was a very, very enjoyable evening, actually. So, yeah.
The sunshine and a bit of cider.
Yes, the odd refreshment, which made the game go ever so well. So no, the farmers seemed to come out on the right side. So it was farmers versus trade. So no, it was a bit of fun and good social, actually.
Anyone on the call get any runs or any wickets?
It wasn't paying that much attention, but
you weren't playing.
Tom had a good go, I think. So yeah.
So yeah, obviously today we're recording this on Thursday, the 2nd of July, and today everyone is talking about an amazing sporting performance that happened last night. Obviously there was the England match, but also I was playing for the trade team, and I'm amazed to say that I actually, and you're going to like this, Tom, I actually won man of the match.
Did you? And for what aspect of your game?
Well, I think I'm a good all-rounder.
We need one of those suddenly in the cricket team. I'm talking England, obviously. Stokes has retired.
Well, who knows? Maybe I'm like a good wine. I'm just going to be getting better as I get older. But no, I did a bit of bowling. I did a bit of fielding, caught some balls, dropped some balls, and then did far better at my batting than I thought I would. And yeah, got a couple of boundaries, and normally I do about 3 balls and then I'm out and I have to walk back to the pavilion. So yeah, I was very chuffed with that.
I think your credentials stand you in good stead for a tilt at captaincy, particularly with a moustache like that as well. I think you're born into leadership. Anyway, let's get back to the intros. So you and Callum were together playing cricket yesterday. But Callum, why don't you just give us a quick intro to your farm, where are you based, and what are you up to?
Yeah, so Callum James, a free-range egg producer from the Southwest. Originally my dad had a family farm of free-range layers, which we've been doing for probably the last 35 years or so. And yeah, the plan was when I returned back from uni to try and take the farm on and expand a few things. Yeah, a few difficulties in terms of planning, restrictions, and we were lucky to take on another site over into Somerset towards Taunton. So yeah, that's been going well. A few changes on that new site, and yeah, between the two sites, we're trying to do our best all with free range layers, and yeah, seems to be going well.
Spot on. And now, Ed, your go.
Hi, I'm Ed Lanning from Devonshire Poultry Limited. Devonshire Poultry is a family business, and we're running 8 sites over the southwest of England from Devon to Wiltshire. Our biggest site's currently in Wiltshire, and our main offices are at our home site in East Devon, in the heart of the Blackdown Hills. I run one of the sites for Devonshire Poultry, which is Oakstone Farm, and we're currently in the process of doing a lot of refurb work here at the moment, updating the farm, modernising it, and bringing it up to our standards. As I record this, we've got concrete lorries driving in and out of the gate, replacing stone yard with a concrete yard. We're doing 1,400 square metres this week.
Fair play. Well, you've both sort of referenced family and being that next generation. Of course, we want to look forward rather than back. But I suspect the farms that you're looking after today look quite different, feel quite different to the farms of your fathers and predecessors. We want to sort of have a look down the track and see, what do we think your farms might look like, and anybody else's might look like in the decade ahead. So, yeah, who wants to kick us off? If you were walking back through the gates in 2035, how do you think it might differ to today?
Well, I think you can't to look at what your farm will look like. You've got to look at the bigger picture. You've got to look at sort of what's happening in Europe, because European poultry production very much still affects what we do in the UK. Obviously, we've dropped to 30 kilos a square metre in the UK, which has created a shortage of chicken. So the UK imports have gone up, and planning permission in the UK, as we all know, is very difficult to get, which is allowing room for imported chicken to get a foothold. I think the biggest thing as a young farmer looking forwards we have to be careful of, it's that when the war in Ukraine ends at some point, there's a lot of labour over there, there's a lot of land, there's all the space for grain to be grown over there, as we all know. So poultry production over there is going to boom and cause an eastward trend in European poultry. So I think to look forward, we have to be very careful, and we have to sort of prepare ourselves to have to be more competitive with the European chicken through that, reducing our cost of production through technology, making ourselves more sort of safer with avian flu by having a AI vaccine, which is already available in some countries. But we have to, as an industry in the UK, prepare ourselves for, I think, maybe a movement of chicken eastwards across Europe.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Ed, haven't you? Because you've talked about labour and the fact that in an awful lot of other countries, labour is cheaper than it is in the UK. It's more readily available. I remember there's a guy I used to work with from South Africa, and he couldn't get his head round our farms. He was walking around. He said, "Where are all the people?" He said, "I've never had an issue finding people to work on my farm." He says, "Usually there's a queue and a few people hanging around at the farm gate most mornings looking for work, whereas over here you're scrabbling around trying to find someone to do the most basic of tasks." Both of you, do you think there are jobs that you are doing on your farm now, or that people are doing on your farms now, because you both employ a reasonable number of people? Are there jobs that they're doing now that in 10 years' time could be replaced by technology or robots. What do you
Yeah,
think?
no, I think, well, sort of looking forward, sort of technology wise, it's year on year seems to be growing. It's always quite interesting going to poultry shows. Every year you go there's a new piece of technology. Even, well, just from the egg side, we've got robotic graders that, can pack the eggs and grade the eggs into, dirties and smalls and cracks or whatever we need to do. So just from sort of an egg point of view, we can minimize staffing from that. And likewise, I think, well, the technology always seems to be moving forward, but there's always going to be a place for having staff on farm, but it's allowing AI or technology coming in to either, well, assist those staff members, in making sure that we're not having issues on farm and, well, beating the problem before it becomes a problem, basically. So we're sort of in conversations with a company at the minute that potentially putting cameras within the shed, which I think they already do in broilers at the minute, which they can identify problems with the birds themselves, and sort of picking up bird behaviour. But if we installed it in our laying units, it might be able to point out problems before it becomes a big issue, basically.
Looking at bird behaviour with AI then, and looking at whether it's sounds or movements or all sorts of other tells that are almost giving you a bit of a sixth sense as to when things are going to happen before they actually do. Is that
Yes,
right?
essentially. Yeah. So that's what the understanding, but it's you know, picking it up before it is an issue, essentially. And if we're having problems, say we've had problems in the past with floor eggs, and these cameras can sort of identify why they may be sort of laying in areas where they shouldn't be, or certain bits of light, or picking up these issues before, really.
And what about interventions? I can imagine that the detection is great, but it's almost that's the result of a change in behaviour. What about proactively intervening before floor eggs are laid? Or I was thinking smothering. I thought that might be another bird behaviour that you really don't want to see. That technology might help us sort of identify either the early phases of creeping behaviour that lead to a smother, or changes, just any changes that give us the time to step in and stop it from happening.
Yeah, it's essentially like an alarm system, so that it might pick up activity. I think it generally sort of learns from itself, so it'll pick it up and say, well, potentially a issue, or a smothering issue. So an alarm either myself or a member of staff, and then it's a case of fixing issue before becomes a big problem, essentially.
Do you see the intervention still being a human being at that point, or if you're the technology is identifying whatever change it might be, is it then a robotic intervention? How do you see that playing out?
I think that the AI with sort of the optical cameras, the infrared cameras picking up heat patterns in sort of broiler sheds and bird activity and things, it will cause an influx back to the farm office of real-time data. Whereas a broiler farm at the moment, we read the temperatures, but that was the previous 24 hours, and you go around the sheds and you can make changes on the birds. The birds look cold, but that's only on that sort of time period that you're in the shed. The cameras bring a lot of real-time data straight back to the farm office for us to react on. So I think you still got to have stockmen on the farm. The stockman's still the key to farm performance, but I think there'll be a change from the traditional stockman role of being in the shed for being in all the sheds sort of 8 hours a day with wellies and overalls on, sort of more data analysis and sort of maintenance of other AI pieces of technology. For example, like an automatic dead picker up in the broiler sheds. I think that the farm manager role is going to sort of evolve and change to match the technology, and the traditional stockman has to change with it to get the most out of it going forward, which could also help with labour in the future if you're sort of employing more of a data analysis or maintenance, robotic maintenance person. It's a very different role to employing somebody to pick up the fallen.
And that's exactly what my thoughts would be, Ed. I think if there's on a broiler farm, if there's one job that it would be fantastic to automate and to take away from humans, it's that sort of daily task of every shed has got to be walked and dead birds have got to be picked up, and it's a necessary thing to do. But I don't
quite
think
enjoy it because you can leave your phone in the switch room. It's just you walking up and down the chicken sheds being with the livestock, but it's.
But then I look at the technology that's employed in robot mowers over the past couple of years, and how that technology has come on. And I know a guy who's just got one, and it's absolutely incredible what this machine can do, and the precision that it navigates where it's going, what it's doing. And I think, well, if this mower can go around this garden and around all of these trees and cut all the grass, well, I'm sure there's got to be the technology that allows some sort of robot to go up and down houses and however.
I think picking up the dead's not the difficult bit, is it? Because it would have a camera and it would scan, and then it would go, there's one not moving, or an infrared camera, oh, it's cold, so it would stop and pick it up. It's the culling, isn't it? And identifying the small birds, the sick birds. I think that's where the technology for just to pick up the dead's probably there, but that's where the technology has to evolve over the next sort of 5 years.
I think we've got to see it, sort of the technology coming in. We've got to use it as a tool, I think, really. We still need that stockmanship and need to be on farm and being on the ball with everything day to day. But using AI to assist that stock person with these issues or just giving us more information, which I think the poultry industry as a whole is very good at keeping and using and utilising information. So the more we can get, the better, I think, really.
If you're not spending time in the morning, someone's walking the sheds to pick up the dead, it frees you up more time to go around the sheds and look at the data you're being given and make the changes accordingly to age and performance. It frees up a few hours in the day to do that.
Do you think there are other side benefits as well beyond sort of day-to-day husbandry and management that might come from technology or data or robotics, etc.? So for just thinking, is there anything around farm assurance and improving confidence of our consumer that we're all doing a good job and providing a?
I was actually reading something the other week about Red Tractor are backing a dissertation being done at Harper Adams at the moment, which is looking into cameras to complement the audit process and provide sort of continuous objectives or insights into what's going on the farm when the auditor's not there.
Yeah.
So if Red Tractor are looking into that, then Tom, I think you're right. I think, again, that's coming.
Yeah. The other one that strikes me is, many people working on poultry farms are often working alone. And, there is an inherent risk about a lone worker that you wonder whether or not there are technologies out there. I know there are lone worker alarms and things, but are there other audio or visual tools that could help raise an alarm or do something to improve the safety of anybody working alone on a farm? That's probably not just on a poultry farm, on any farm.
I was just going to make the point that there's been various times, I think, when I've gone to visit farms where there's only been one person on the farm, and you turn up and you realise that this person hasn't spoken to anyone for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden they need to have all of their conversations and get all their thoughts and their worries off the chest. And maybe they could just have someone to chat to, couldn't they? They could have almost like a virtual assistant farm manager that they could chat to and talk about the day and what's going on, and then the virtual assistant farm manager could suggest some ideas, and then they could chat about the football or whatever else, and they might not feel quite so isolated. Anyway, it's just a bit of a silly thought of mine.
You can always have C3PO walking around with you. Yeah.
Anyway, what point were you going to make, Callum?
I think the technology is sort of like I said earlier, it's always growing. I think there will be a time where things will come forward in terms of safety for staff and, like you say, making suggestions of how things should be done or whatever. It's always seems to be progressing forward. But I suppose another thing we sort of in terms of biosecurity, I think some of these cameras can. We all live busy lives. We're always busy from farms or whatever. But having cameras that we can identify potential problems where biosecurity might be getting missed, maybe it might be a good indicator to also flag an alarm there, so that AI is not any of us want to be going down getting bird flu essentially. So if we can put an alarm system in on these systems that flags up an issue if biosecurity is not being done correctly or using access through sheds that shouldn't be getting used, I think it's probably only going to help, I think, really.
Yeah, Big Brother properly watching, the human being move about the shed. I suppose there's a double-edged sword potentially. If you've got robotics in a poultry shed, then making sure that that's clean is going to be a challenge. And I would have thought microchips and moving parts and water or chemical cleaning agent probably not the greatest of bedfellows. But
well, you say
sure...
that, Tom. When I went out to Viv in Utrecht in the beginning of June for a couple of days, and as I was walking around, one of the things that really caught my eye was there was a robotic camera controlled pressure washer, and it was showing videos of it going down layer sheds and broiler sheds, washing out the nest boxes and washing the floor and the drinkers and feeders. So obviously you can make it so it's sort of chemical proof, and that really struck me as like something to look at or watch going forwards, because if you can do that, you can wash your sheds for 24 hours.
I was picturing RoboDog in my imagination. There was, the robotic assistant in the shed, permanently in the shed for the life of the crop or the flock. But the robot joints harbour red mite, or they harbour something else that's then, potential vector for disease the next flock around. And at some point, that robot needs to be properly broken down, cleaned, and put back in. And but yeah, to your point, robots that do washing, fantastic. That would be another big step in the right direction. Let's move the conversation on to the birds themselves. The geneticists in these enormous companies that invest billions into the selection of the birds that we farm, whether it's for meat or eggs. They're already harnessing all sorts of technologies to make those selections as early as possible and to predict as far into the future as they possibly can. The features or the longevity, the functionality of their birds. What do you think the broiler 10 years down the line, or the layer 10 years down the line, is going to be capable of? And
I went to a talk with Aviagen when it was October time. They did an Aviagen live at Cadbury's house in Bristol, and they were saying by 2030 or the next 5-6 years, the Ross 308 broiler, they are hoping to be able to do a food conversion of 1.35. So the standard Rustberg, the geneticists obviously think there's still more performance, more efficiency to get out of it. Yeah, it's sort of 15, 20 points lower than where we are at the moment, isn't it, on food conversion? And food conversion's improving, as is your weight.
Yeah, and you deal on farms, and you have farms which are running different breeds, don't you, Ed?
Yes, we do. Yeah,
with people
we're running
you supply
the Ross 308 and the Hubbard Red Crow.
Yeah. So again, I mean, this is sort of a very open question, really. But do you think those different breeds are going to continue to have their places? Because I know from previous conversations, you're generally you're quite a big fan, aren't you, of the Hubbards that you have, and you like them, and the they're easy to manage. The litter's good. How will that evolve, do you think, over the next 10 years?
this was an exact thought process I was having whilst walking the chicken this morning, actually. I think the country needs food security. It needs affordable protein. So the biggest market in the UK is always going to be the Ross 308, your fast growing, highly efficient broiler bird. However, there always is going to be a premium market in the UK. It's not all just the one bird. I think there will always be a place for the Hubbard Red Brow and the sort of slower growing breed. But as time progresses, how much of a market share it's going to get, that I don't know. It depends on the economic state of the country, doesn't it? How much disposable income people have got. And I suppose that bird will, production supply of it will go up and down a bit depending on how affluent people in the UK are.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'd like to see the Hubbard bird continued. I really like it. I've done 12 crops of it here. I've just gone back to standard birds, and I really enjoyed growing it.
No, well, I think definitely the sort of the dial has shifted a bit, hasn't it? Because we're going back. We talked many years about the better chicken commitment and will it happen? Will it not happen? And obviously it has happened because the birds you're growing are the red-browed birds are for a better chicken commitment product. But what's actually happened is that the majority of the sector has moved everything apart from the breed to meet the better chicken commitment standards. So there is this shift in terms of, you know, what the retail customer wants over a period of time towards higher welfare, more space, light, windows, all these other things. And to me, that's going to continue in some way or another. Maybe we don't quite know what the next move will be in 10 years' time, but I think there will be other things that happen because people have different expectations, I think, in terms of their chicken and where it comes from.
You got to look at food security, though, haven't you? The world's an unsettled place. And ultimately, what dictates what we grow is consumer needs and food security, isn't it? And I think that's the major win on the Ross 308 is a fast-growing bird. So you can produce more, which means our imports are less. It's about 25%, I think, we import at the moment.
Perhaps I could move this over to Callum then and talk about your experience then, Callum, of genetics, and no doubt you've had experience of different birds in your time. I'm not exactly sure what you've got on the ground at the moment, but there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about white eggs and white birds, and what are your thoughts in terms of where genetics will move over the next 10 years?
I think over the next 10 years, I think birds are just generally, they're going to all genetics of, well, birds go, they're generally getting better in terms of how many eggs they're going to lay. You know, I can see in the next 10 years, brown birds, they'll be probably taking to 100 weeks easily. The white birds are already doing it now. So yeah, the genetics are always improving throughout all the breeds because there is a long old list of different breeds out there. And we've got, on the farm, we've got, probably 6 different breeds now at the minute, I think, across all different sheds. But they've all got their pros and cons, and it's they don't always stay the same. So you might find you have one flock of one breed, one flock, and then by the time you go for it the second time, they change again. So it's keeping with the times, and different farms and different setups all have their sort of pros and cons. So it does take a little bit understanding and knowing what works for your system and your farm. But yeah, I think as a whole, the industry, they are going to be becoming more efficient, whether that's through feed consumption, egg quality, and definitely sort of if they're keeping the birds on for longer, we've got to make sure we've got the egg quality and eggshell come those later months, really. So they've got to be a hardy bird going forward. But from the split between white and brown has been hot topic in the news, I think, recently. Which I don't really know how it's been taken by sort of the consumer. It's always been a little bit of a grey area up until recent years. But just from my personal experience, it seems to have, we sell some eggs privately here on the farm from Farm Gate, and a lot of our customers have been sort of pleased by it, and they enjoy it. We at the minute we're splitting, say a tray of 30, we'd split half browns, half white. Looks quite pretty on the tray, but get some using them, and yeah, they say the eggshells may be stronger on the whites and exactly the same feed, so they no issues from our side really. But I think from a retailer and sort of consumer's point of view, there's always been a little bit of uncertainty with the white eggs, but I think it's a case from the industry. We've just got to educate people about it, and say, well, yeah, it's an egg and there's egg really, but it's making sure people understand really.
I want to ask a question that talks to optimism, asks you both about how you feel our market, the consumer, relates to food production in your career as you look ahead. You know, Ed, you were talking about food security and the importance of food security, and we understand that because, you know, we're in production. But I wonder if you sort of come at it from a consumer point of view in our nation. You know, we're I don't think I'm too far wrong in sort of generalizing and saying that, you know, many shoppers don't really have a very strong understanding of how their food was produced or even where it came from. And Callum, you know, brown versus white and the element of consumer choice. What is it that they're looking for, and you know, what their motives are? Is it? Do you feel, both of you, a sense of confidence or kind of foreboding in terms of having a connection with the consumer, understanding what it is that they want, and then rising to that challenge, meeting that challenge? Is that you know, is it a good thing to try and educate people, as you mentioned, Callum, or is it a frustration that they don't already have a better appreciation of, you know, food production?
Yeah, no, I think they are sort of disconnected, the general public, definitely, from, well, all agriculture, which, yeah, I think there should be some sort of scheme or sort of program that educates the general public where their sort of food comes from, because, you know, poultry can sometimes, well, quite often does get bad press, but at the end of the day, we are doing what we have to do. We're creating food for the general public, really. So, but you know, we've got a couple of egg vending machines on farm, and I think speaking to customers there, they they generally like to know where their food comes from, and they enjoy that idea of it. Yeah, that's fresh free-range eggs essentially that they're buying, but they like the idea of, you know, they're traveling out of their way to go and buy a tray of eggs, not just going around, you know, the supermarket. They'd rather go out their way to pick those eggs up because they like to know where their food comes from. And I think there's certainly an element there for people wanting to do it, but to a scale thing, I don't know how we can get the message across to the general public to understand what farming is and how to better understand it, really, which I think there definitely should be something there.
I think well, everybody says it, don't you? I think Clarkson's Farms helped a lot because it's somebody who understands TV, understands audiences, to get a message across. That's helped a lot in showing, I know it's not poultry farming, but showing the insights of farming. But I think you can also, if consumers don't know where food comes from, but also we've alienated ourselves from the consumer. It's very much been poultry farms, we've shut the gates, nobody's allowed in. Whereas I think to bring that understanding back, it was something I was told. I did a media training course in October and December. I see we can't expect the general public to come straight to our level with farming. We have to take it all the way back to the basics, and we have to educate them and bring them forward. There'll be a few people, some people that sort of buy Callum's eggs from the farm gate, they want to learn. But if you sort of drive into the centre of some of these big cities, are they going to go out of their way to learn where it comes from? They're not. We have to go take steps back to educate them, to bring them forwards, to gain that understanding, I think, if we want that to work going forward. How do we do that? By well, I don't know, but I think that's the way we have to do it.
I think we've got to sort of lean on the side, like I think Ed mentioned earlier, in terms of imports. You know, we've got some of the best assurance schemes out there, well, in the world, really. We ought to really be flying that flag and advertising that British food is sort of the better of it. So why are we letting cheaper products, cheaper chicken meat, cheaper eggs coming in as an import when we could be, you know, utilising our own? And lowering our standards essentially just for cheaper prices, which I think that's got to be a clear message we've got to be putting out there, really.
Exactly. So why shut the farm gates to alienate ourselves from the consumer? When it's exactly what you just said about our welfare standards.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about some of the challenges with climate change, because we just a week ago, wasn't it? We were going through some pretty hot weather, and the predictions are that the weather's going to continue to get warmer, and instances of heat waves are going to increase. How do you think that's going to impact whether it's your individual farms or the way that we've got to run farms, build farms going forward? Because really, it's got quite big implications, hasn't it, for both sectors, for broilers and for egg layers.
If you turn the clock back sort of 10, 15 years, the high pressure cooling systems in broiler sheds, some people were fitting when sheds were built, but not everybody. Whereas now, I think pretty much everybody that builds a broiler shed is fitting high pressure cooling to cope with the heat waves. I've seen Reventa, as the Reventa version of, but they do pad cooling, which fits on the outside of your building by your air inlet, and it's got like water pumping through like a mesh, and then the air gets pulled through it, which cools the air before it even enters the building, rather than as it enters the building. Perhaps that's something that we'll start to see more of in the UK. There's building your sheds to cope with it, making sure you've got 300 mil of insulation in your roof so your shed doesn't warm up as quick and it doesn't get as cold on a winter's day as well.
Callum, what about you in the layers side of things? I mean, yeah, we're very reliant on our ventilation. If our ventilation failed in the heat of the summer, there'd be all sorts of difficulties. Do you think you'll see layer sheds with active cooling?
Yeah, it's very difficult, really, because, well, as soon as you open those pop holes, your ventilation sort of always goes out the window, near enough. But I mean, cooling systems is one to be questioned, or if there's ways of, like Ed said, you know, making sure these new sheds are well insulated to keep that heat out, or, you know, I know in the broiler side they use sprinkler systems. Whether we've got to look at using that within free range layers, or, you know, even on some of the older sheds, I sort of toyed with the idea whether we're going to have to put, you know, sprinkler systems on the tops of the roofs just to cool the active, you know, the roof temperature itself. I think people say you can lose a couple of degrees just by doing something as simple as that, quite cheaply as well, just to sort of reduce those temperatures in the shed a little bit, just to help, really.
Many broiler sheds will have windows, won't they? And I wonder whether or not those windows are a source of additional heat coming through. And as the layer industry grapples with new welfare standards that require more natural light and in time installation of windows, whether that's something that's taking us in, you know, a difficult direction as far as managing climate change.
Yes.
Yeah, Ed, what's your perspective of having windows in terms of managing temperature?
On a whole, I do like the windows. I think when they're open, it does make the shed a really sort of light, nice place to be. And I do like when the windows are open, but for what you just said, Tom, managing temperature in hot weather, you do end up with a greenhouse effect on them. You've got windows in the side and you've got sun glaring onto it. Of course, you're going to get a greenhouse effect, which is another heat source that during hot weather you don't want, isn't it? But then you've got to keep them open for red tractor compliance. The obvious thing is to shut the shutters, but you can't do that. Perhaps it's something that needs to be talked about in the future.
maybe if we steer the conversation as well towards renewables, because I know there's been huge uptake, hasn't there, in renewables across the poultry sector so far. A lot of people utilising biomass. I certainly would have said, you go back over the last 15 years on the broiler sector as a source of heat, which was encouraged, wasn't it, by feed-in tariffs. But I think an awful lot of people like it and like the fact that it produces a dry heat, as opposed to the sort of traditional burning that would be going on with gas brooders. But I'm seeing a lot more solar as well now, and people putting solar on roofs, and you get this complementary situation, don't you, where you have times when you have got lots and lots of sunlight is generally when your ventilation is working quite hard, so you're generating electricity on farm when you need it. What do you see potentially as the next thing for renewables? Do you think it's going to stop at solar? Do you think there are potentially other ways that we could be utilising and maximising energy on farm? Batteries, for example?
Battery storage is the obvious one. We're about 900 kilowatts of solar, and we'd be 45% self-sufficient. If we could store the electric that we'd be exporting to the grid, would be sort of up at 80% self-sufficient. And for a lot of the time, the farm would be off-grid completely. I think that's something. There was quite a few at the poultry show up in the NEC. There's quite a few battery storage companies there that I spoke to, and we're just looking into that and costing it out to see how well it stacks up. I think it's a technology that's going to get cheaper as time develops, isn't it? It's like anything, because when they first came out, the payback on the battery was longer than the lifespan on the battery, so you wouldn't do it. But that's very much changed now, and we're seriously looking at that.
Is it something you're considering as well, Callum?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, there was a lot up at the show the other day. Poultry business has always been and always will be, I think, high energy usage that we've got to use, with lighting the sheds for long periods of time, ventilation in the summer months. And I think sort of solar and battery storage will go hand in hand with the poultry industry. And yeah, the batteries have definitely come on quite a lot now, and over the last couple of years, and being able to sort of store that energy, use it at the dark periods. And yeah, even I know you can export that battery charge if you've got a surplus. So I know a lot of the RHI's repayments on the solar is now gone, but it's weighing up against your electricity bill, which always seems to be going up and up. And it's yeah. So if you can make yourself as self-sufficient as possible, I think that's the way to be looking at it, really.
Further investment in resilience. Sorry,
yes, definitely stack up on payback. We've sort of found it's about 4.5 year payback on a big solar install. We've just, on my farm here, we've just fitted an 880 kilowatt biomass system, utilising some old boilers that we had on the farm. But I think going forwards, biomass and RHI is all based on heat production, isn't it? And you can then become quite wasteful, that heat, because during the winter, you go, oh, well, I'll let them invent a bit to dry the litter, and I'll chuck the heat back in with biomass. I think going forwards, the renewable going to be more on heat recovery, heat saving. Going to be heat exchange has been around for a while, but are they going to start to pick up and kick off more? We're going to see more of those being installed on buildings, especially during the winter months. If you're brooding chicks at 31.5, you're bringing air in at -2. The heat exchange all of a sudden works very well on your heat saving.
And energy security is the other thing that I think people talk about. And yeah, you've been bringing up food security, haven't you, Ed? And I think almost food security and energy security are linked, because ultimately, if we go back to 2022, when the price of wheat went up and the price of gas went up, that directly then drove the price of chicken going up as well, and the price of and the price of other staples. So I think the whole thing going on with batteries is a really exciting area for development, which could impact all sorts of different sectors in agriculture.
But I think you can't just look at it narrow-mindedly. This is what the UK poultry industry has to do. I think the UK as a whole, we have to look at food security and energy security, because as I said earlier, the world's unsettled, and if we haven't got the food security, we haven't got energy security, then as a country as a whole, we're not sustainable, are we? If something went wrong, then we're all going to struggle, and then UK food production's going to struggle even more.
So maybe if we take this opportunity just to wrap up, then I mean, what we've talked about a whole range of topics, haven't we? We've talked about genetics, haven't we? We've talked about energy use, renewables. We've talked about labour and automation, and we've also talked about sort of real time information and cameras and AI being able to make decisions. It sounds like there's an awful lot to be optimistic about. What's the one thing that really stands out for you individually as being something that you think is going to be your passion? You're going to be really excited to see happen going forward. Maybe start with you, Callum.
Yeah, I think going forward in the next 10 years, I think data, if we can utilize what data we're getting currently, or getting more data with the use of AI, I think, we can be better informed, and, we can look ahead and know where our businesses are from day to day. And yeah, we can get ahead of the problems if they do arise, and, we're better understood with that information that we can use, really. Yeah.
And Ed?
I think the same. I think it is data, and using that data. The amount of readings we get out of a poultry shed, broiler shed each day, it's using that, and it's using that to benefit your performance and grow with the potential of the bird going forwards and achieve those very good or even lower food conversions. And it's using that to make informed management decisions through the infrared cameras when we look at doing that, or whether it's the data coming back to the farm office better from the control systems we've already got. Yeah, that really excites me going forwards. And I really like renewable energy. I really enjoyed putting the solar panels on here. I've enjoyed doing the biomass project. I find it absolutely fascinating. So I would love to see how that develops going forwards, and how we can utilise that in a chicken shed on a poultry farm.
Brilliant. So it's funny that we come back around to data. I think, for me, I was sort of writing down a few of my thoughts. I think listened to you over the last sort of 40 minutes or so, and many of the things are, I would say they're evolution rather than revolution. In every walk of life, there are people that are embracing new technology as soon as it's available, and then harnessing the benefits of that. And because they start sooner, they enjoy the benefits for longer. And generally, everyone catches up. And in a way, we can look at the egg industry as being a bit of a follower behind the meat industry in many of the technologies that you in your broiler sheds, Ed, have probably had for some time. But we come back round to data, and in data, I'm of the belief that it isn't evolution at all. It is revolution, and that AI, machine learning, and finding the correlations between the mass of information that we've got available to us now to identify so far sort of undiscovered opportunities to optimize, to increase efficiency, to improve welfare, and generally just make our businesses more resilient. That, I think, when I look forward for the next few years, that is the one thing that I would say is really going to transform our businesses. So it's fascinating that that's the thing that you both come to as the last big ticket item.
We're taking 84 readings a week off of the Traco controllers and inputting onto the computer out of our broiler sheds, and you can get so much more out of those 84 readings than what we currently do.
Yeah, we are scratching the surface. Watch this space.
Well, probably all that remains for us to do is to thank you both for coming along and for participating in such a good discussion. And also want to thank Robert Lanning for for stumping up the money for charities to actually be guest editor on this podcast, and for providing such a great subject matter for us to talk about. So thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you.